Sarah?
Yes.
I'm sorry, did we lose audio on you for some reason, or did you guys hear my intro?
No, I didn't hear anything.
Oh my gosh, okay, well, that explains a lot. I'm going to read you my intro then, and then I'm going to hand things over to you. I apologize for the delay. I thought I'd already kicked things off here.
Sorry.
Let me go ahead and jump back on this. Hi, everyone. Apologies for the delay here. But I'll kick off with the intro again. So, hi, welcome to Agrifood Conversations, brought to you by iSelect Fund, the Van Trump Report, the Yield Lab Institute, and Family Farms Group. My name is David Yoakum, an associate with the iSelect Fund Ventures team, and I'm excited to welcome you to today's call. Agrifood Conversations is all about driving innovation in agriculture. Each month, we highlight a specific theme, including emerging topics such as soil health, plant genetics, vertical farming, and aquaculture, to name a few. On today's Agrifood Conversations call, we are joined by Sarah Bellows, founder and CEO of Stony Creek Colors. Stony Creek Colors sells sustainable plant-based dyes to textile manufacturers, allowing fashion brands to offer consumers more environmentally friendly clothing. The company's products are of consistent industrial quality, but without the toxic wastewater of synthetic petroleum-based dyes. Each of you knows that companies are more likely to succeed with the right network of customers, talent, investors, and advisors. We have invited you to this call because you are some of the smartest and most talented people in Stony Creek Colors market. You are potential customers for Stony Creek Colors products and services. You built and or sold a company like Stony Creek Colors, or you are a sophisticated business person who understands Stony Creek Colors market and the challenges it may face. Now, before we get started, we have a quick poll question to get a better idea of who we have on the call today. Please take a few seconds to answer. First, a few process comments. One, we're not soliciting investment. This presentation is to provide information about Stony Creek Colors products and services and to help them find customers, mentors, and other strategic relationships that can help them grow their business. Two, you are all on mute. You can use the chat window to ask a question, and after the formal part of the presentation, we will answer as many questions as time allows. Three, this presentation is being recorded and will be available for replay within 24 hours. So without further delay, I am pleased to introduce Sarah Bellows, founder and CEO of Stony Creek Colors. Please take it away, Sarah.
Great. Thanks, everyone. And thanks, David, for the introduction. As David mentioned, I'm Sarah Bellows, CEO and founder of Stony Creek Colors. And Stony Creek is a global leader in plant-derived indigo today. We bring our high-purity natural indigo into new markets, as well as other products, allowing us to offer clean and safe plant-based dyes for use in both textiles and also expanding into consumer goods products. Ultimately, this helps our customers, fashion brands, and major brands to offer traceable and environmentally conscious premium products for their consumers. There are a few reasons why this work is more relevant today than ever. Across all consumer sectors, we know that brands are under pressure to clean up their products. This is because customers are becoming more mindful of their buying decisions, and in many cases seeking to minimize or eliminate their exposure to harmful chemicals. We see this brought to bear in the rise of clean label cosmetics and food products that only have words that you can pronounce on the back of their labels, as opposed to perhaps the typical product that we saw as recently as 10 years ago. Brands, though, that are seeking these more sustainable products also have a number of other challenges that they're working through, most importantly to make sure that the alternatives that they're choosing are scalable and consistent. This takes a lot of forms depending on the type of the brand and the product, but some things that are really non-negotiable are a high quality and high performance characteristics. We know that customers are not willing to sacrifice for a sustainability claim if the product quality suffers. Ultimately, the traceability and transparency of the supply chain is critical, as is the ability to source it at a volume and consistency that will work for the major multinationals. The differentiating characteristics and the abilities of the brands to transition and capture more of the premium market segment is really an important and emerging trend, and the clean label really allows brands, even major multinationals, to capture some of those major premium customers. So what we're really seeing in our space is that natural colorants are taking market share across industries, everything from food to cosmetics, textiles, and consumer goods that are moving towards plant-based solutions. and really that international markets are leading domestic markets, especially in Europe, where the CAGR on things like the transition to natural food colorants has really even outpaced the United States. So ultimately leading to more brands trading synthetic inputs for natural alternatives. When we started Stony Creek Colors, the reality was that in our space of textiles, we were confronted with a number of hard to scale crops and chose to focus the business on plant-based indigo, really because that was where natural dyes were really struggling to meet industrial specifications. What we heard over and over from customers in our discovery process was that plant-based indigo was not able to transition to major industrial use, that denim mills couldn't use the product because the transparency was questionable, meaning the origin as an actual plant-derived product was questionable, and ultimately the purity of the natural product was so much worse than that of synthetic. So the purity of the synthetic indigo available was nearly 10 times better than that of the plant-derived indigo. This was due to a lot of factors, one of which is the high perishability of the crop biomass. The other was really due to the methods of the extraction, but ultimately really limiting the availability and penetration of harder to scale crops like natural indigo to reach into these new consumer markets. So you might ask, why bother? And the answer to that is really because the fashion industry has a very dirty secret that brands absolutely know about and are beginning to confront. One of those dirty secrets is that textile dyeing and finishing is responsible for 17% of the industrial wastewater pollution globally. That's really a huge number if you think about it. If 17% is coming from something sort of as specific as just the dyeing of the clothing that we're wearing, that's a huge impact. But beyond that, the use of chemicals, non-renewable synthetic chemicals in these complex synthetic dye supply chains is quite large. And the type of chemistries that are used are also really harmful. So if you just take, for example, sodium cyanide, we pretty much can all agree that cyanide is a harmful chemical, and yet it takes 1/2 of a pound of cyanide to make 1 pound of synthetic indigo. And so thinking about the hundreds of millions of pounds of indigo, for example, used each year, these use of chemistries really add up. Beyond that, the reaction energy and waste that's produced through these systems is really large. Known carcinogens like aniline, for example, that are the building blocks of synthetic indigo, are still found in the final products. And so you can see why a concern of brands is not only the manufacturing process, but also the residual chemicals that are known to cause cancer that are found in the final product. We can contrast that with a natural indigo solution, such as the one Stony Creek Colors has now brought to scale. Not only can you pronounce all the words on this slide, but you can understand why the business model that we've developed and really this circular model is more restorative for both the agricultural producers that are making our crop and ultimately helping the fashion brands bring our product to market to tell a better story to their end consumers. We'll touch a little bit more on that business model in a little bit, but just to frame this market for you, Stony Creek Colors' flagship product is natural indigo for denim. That's what we first went to market with, and that's because this is a chemically identical drop-in replacement to the synthetic indigo used by all denim mills today. There is a $4.2 billion market opportunity at our current pricing for our natural indigo solution in premium denim, and this allows fashion brands to have a low-cost differentiator. Ultimately, within all the sustainability initiatives that a brand might choose, the ones most likely to be accepted are the ones where the brand can pass any additional cost onto their consumer. And so brands are able to do that with a plant label, plant-derived origin, just because of the challenges confronting the synthetic indigo supply chain and the greater awareness building about the toxic chemicals now found in our clothing. Stony Creek is the only producer of plant-derived indigo globally that has the USDA BioPreferred label, certifying us as a 100% bio-based product. We're able to bring the market's only high-purity plant-derived indigo at scale, and really to be selling this product into the denim mills for the first time in over 100 years, really because we manage the entire crop value chain. It's important to know that the things that were limiting purity of natural indigo historically were really multifaceted. It was both about the consistency and purity of the crop itself, but also agricultural methods and extraction methods. So our team works across the value chain, starting with the seed and the crops themselves, selecting and breeding for higher yield per plant, but also for other attributes, and then bringing a new system of mechanical harvesting to produce the crop at scale and be able to bring it into our modernized extraction facility to actually make a high purity dye for our consumer. Ultimately, this lets us bring product to market that meets the specifications of the denim mill customer and fits into their existing equipment without any changes needed. The global denim market is very large, and the opportunity for Stony Creek Colors to really command the entire premium space that we believe is attainable with a plant-derived indigo is definitely the target we're after. Synthetic indigo is used today about 142 million pounds each year just for denim dyeing. That's definitely the main market for indigo right now. We're focused on the premium, luxury, and the upper end of the mass market. That's about a third of that total indigo market. So by capturing 5% of that premium market or 2% of the overall market, this is about $256 million revenue opportunity for Stony Creek. But that market size of the premium and upper end of the mass market at our current pricing is over a $4 billion market. So you can see why, as a business, we chose our flagship product to go after the denim market. That has been met with some real solid initial success and adoption by major fashion brands. So on this slide, you can see some of the major brands and retailers that are already sourcing plant-derived indigo from Stony Creek Colors. We have some really great partners ranging from more sustainability-minded companies like Patagonia and Nudie to more of mass market brands, as well as brands like Levi's that are both sustainability minded but also have a huge market reach, or brands like Wrangler that have really big soil health initiatives right now. So across a wide range of end users and end brands, there's a strong connection to the use of plant-derived indigo. Please let me know if there's a connection problem, just because it popped up that there might be a challenge. So just hop in, David, if you can't hear me for some reason.
Hear you loud and clear.
Okay, awesome. The market beyond denim, though, is also quite significant. And so while as our initial years of scaling up the business are very focused on denim, I wanted to present here some of the other applications in adjacent verticals that we are actively pursuing right now, or exploring partnerships in, or in some cases already have paid pilots underway across some of these different markets and applications. The important thing to know here is that we have now done the work of scaling up the natural indigo supply chain and producing a higher purity product than ever has been seen from a natural plant-derived indigo before. This affords us the opportunity to move into new verticals that have really high quality and purity specifications. And here, natural indigo sometimes is the product itself, and often natural indigo is a building block to make another chemical that can serve these other markets. So as an example, in the food coloration space right now, the FD&C colors blue number 2 is made from indigo carmine. That's a sulfonated indigo that's made today from the cyanide-based indigo. So that synthetic indigo that requires a half a pound of cyanide to make is also the same indigo that goes into the FD&C blue number 2. So we absolutely have a solution to bring to create natural indigo carmine from our bio-preferred plant-derived indigo, but at the same time also have new opportunities to bring a more clean label blue colorant to the food market that wouldn't even have to have the FD&C label, but can be exempt from the specific FD&C labeling requirement. So depending on what application and whether we're replacing an existing product or going into a new product, there's a lot of opportunity. Just to call out a couple of these other opportunities within textile, there are a range of derivatives that we can make from the natural indigo or other compounds that we derive from our indigo biomass, such as indirubin, which has active pharmaceutical research underway by other groups for its cancer-fighting properties. In the cosmetic space, for example, where we have paid pilots right now, you might not think of blue as a major cosmetics color, but if you consider back to, kindergarten art class, blue is one of the 3 primary colors, and so it's incredibly important from a blending perspective. Even all foundations and any makeup products that are on the market are usually combined a few of the primary colors in black and white that are combined. So a wide range of other verticals that we're exploring. Just to dive a bit into one of those market opportunities. Within the food market, the global food colorant market is rapidly transitioning to natural food colors as major multinationals are removing artificial colors from their supply chains. We've seen that with Kraft mac and cheese transitioning to a turmeric from their regular FD&C yellow dye. So within this market, we know FD&C blue number 2, for example, just used within the United States is about $142 million market. That doesn't include any markets in Europe, and certainly doesn't include any other of the other blue applications that could replace the other blue colors in the food market right now. So certainly what we know is that Stony Creek is the only provider of natural indigo really that controls the entire supply chain to allow equality and provenance to move into the food, cosmetics, and consumer products market with our sustainable and renewable plant-derived blue. And this is a very active space in M&A right now. Since we started the company, there have been a number of acquisitions really driven by very significant multiples. So everything, from in the early days of our company, ADM had an acquisition of Wild Flavors. And since then, we've really seen a multiple on EBITDA increase, really driven by what is the scarcity of deals and the scarcity of companies that have really built up these complex agricultural value chains in both colors, flavors, and fragrances as relates to natural colors, natural flavors, and natural fragrances. And also, obviously, as trends in lots of market segments, the decision to buy instead of try to build out these complex value chains themselves. So our team is actively engaged across many aspects of the business, and certainly working on creating as much value so that we can drive significant multiple at exit, and that it is a major reason for us actively expanding beyond just textiles into those other markets, as I mentioned. My background in terms of my work career did come from the textile space, but my academic training was in agriculture and natural resources. I graduated from the ag school at Cornell University. I brought on our Chief Operating Officer, Joe Cotty, earlier in 2019. He has significant experience as a senior executive across many relevant industries, from animal and human health and nutrition to nutraceuticals to flavors and CPG. And so Joe is really helping us expand our operational excellence and bring more greater scale and more rapid growth to the company. Sean Janung is our technology development manager, and Sean has been in R&D and management roles at a number of tech-based startups. He's previously been a Cisco entrepreneur in residence and worked in tech transfer, including at Oak Ridge National Labs. Beyond that, we're a team of 25 right now, ranging from R&D to process operators and supervisor, as well as the agricultural team. And to touch just a little bit on some of the way that we've built out this business model, especially as it relates to the ag side, which I'm sure is of interest for this group. I've mentioned that building and managing this complex agricultural value chain is really was critical to us getting a foothold in the market and now being able to scale. So what that looks like for the company is takes a few different aspects. The initial really building block of all of our work is making sure that we have a consistent and predictable supply of seed that allows us to have consistent die yield. That means for us that we are both selecting across whole populations and then also selecting individuals to push forward into our breeding nurseries and into our inbreeding to get more and more consistency in the crop over time. The company maintains its own proprietary seed stock. There is no commercial or certified indigo seed right now globally. There has been really limited technology and investment in that space from many other companies. So I would definitely put natural indigo as an orphan crop relative to many other crops around the world. And so we have some research partnerships, as I mentioned, for example, with Donald Danforth Plant Science Center. We also maintain remote seed farms as well as remote research farms to expand the geographic radius that we'll be able to source from, including from more tropical locations. And our business model right now is that we provide seed or seedling to contract farmers and then have a mechanized system for harvesting the crop to really allow more rapid harvesting and getting it to processing more quickly. Today, we're focused on transitioning farmers that are in the Tennessee and Southern Kentucky regions to natural indigo. This is a really promising diversification crop for farmers. There's a lot of interest in scaling into the crop. We have 17 contract farmers right now. And some of the reasons for that, besides that we pay and have fair contracts with the growers, is that it is a legume variety, so it doesn't need really supplemental nitrogen fertilizer. It has a positive carbon impact, including through the compost that we can bring back to the farmers' fields. So for brands themselves to have a climate positive chemical input, it is a big marketing story for them. And several of our farmers have now started adopting no-till production methods or incorporating it in strip-till production methods. So happy to share more about that for those interested in the specifics of the growing in the Q&A period. We own and operate our own processing facility. This is all based on an aqueous extraction method. This photo on the screen is a picture from the inside of our facility. And in 2020, we'll be producing running biomass through about 180,000 pounds of biomass each day is our current capacity. The extraction method that we started with is really under transition right now. We have a next generation extraction method that we developed that will ultimately allow us to expand into year-round manufacturing to run the facility through the winter as well. And that is enabled really through our R&D team, who works across a number of initiatives, both on the agricultural side as well as factory, as well as really new IP development on the application side. So we have 2 patents pending right now, more related to indigo derivatives, chemistries that we make from the indigo molecule and apply in new ways for new applications. The R&D team is an active part of evolving our business model. And just to give you an example of what that can look like for the business, our baseline yield compared to predicted yield over the next just few years has had a massive increase. So we are predicting a 15-time improvement here, or that's what the existing technology that we have already either proven on the benchtop or in research plots will allow us as we continue to scale. So everything from plant selection and baseline agronomic improvement through expanding the geographies through multiple more harvests than what we're able to get in Tennessee. For example, expanding further into the Mississippi Delta and southern Louisiana and South Texas, as well as other tropical regions where the crop can be grown as a perennial crop. And then obviously there is a significant opportunity for improving the genetics of a crop that has historically been a wild, where the seed has really, the ability to produce seed has been the major driver of what seed goes to market. And so being able to now take new tools we've developed for more rapid screening of the plant to inform our plant selection and breeding program that is pretty conservative assessment to say 44% improvement, but that ultimately is one of the main drivers of scaling up yield per acre of indigo dye. Ultimately, our extraction method, transitioning to a year-round extraction method and a more efficient extraction method will allow for more of that conversion of potential indigo out of the leaves into actual indigo dye coming out of our own factory. So beyond just the agronomic and plant genetics and extractions research, our team does have a number of partnerships as well as just in-house technology for new applications to both make indigo dyeing more efficient at denim mills, partnerships for bringing new bio-based colors into both the textile market and other markets to get more color into the marketplace more efficiently, which ultimately will help expand the reach of plant-derived colors even further. We started the company really focused on validating the initial biomass and ability to grow this crop in Tennessee and start proving that the crop itself could scale, focus on mechanizing the production and mechanizing and scaling the chemical extraction. Now we've really transitioned in part due to our ability to capture a decent amount of research and development grants, both through the USDA and National Science Foundation, SBIR and STTR programs, to even more fully round out our R&D program and continue to invest in the next generation methods for both producing indigo plants and producing the dye stuff. And while we continue to get R&D grants, we've definitely evolved now that we're in a more rapid manufacturing phase to being more of an investor financed company. So we raised our first significant outside capital in 2016 in a Series Seed round, and then at the end of 2017, raised a new market tax credit financing in conjunction with a $3.3 million equity round. So now from 2017 to 2019, we've made some pretty significant improvements to both the technology and the scalability of the process while bringing more fashion brands into the fold as customers. Now with this next target of scale, we are increasing the number of acres that we have under production. Our goal is to almost 3x our crop production every year, which is a pretty significant increase for an ag company that's also doing all of the processing. And so that will absolutely come with an equity round. We are planning to raise a Series B in Q1 of 2020. And so now I'm happy to share diligence stocks and share more information with people offline that might be irrelevant of interest for. So certainly our goals, as you know, are to expand and dominate our influence within the denim space, but then beyond that, continue to increase the adoption of plant-derived blue colors derived from indigo into other adjacent verticals to bring them to new markets. That I believe is my last slide. My contact information is up on the slide, and I'm happy to take any questions, probably first from David, if you have any.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sarah. We really appreciate you walking through some of the really exciting work you guys are doing, and obviously a lot of progress that's been made over the last couple of years and going forward here. As Sarah mentioned, now's a great time for questions from the audience. The best way to ask questions is to type them into the question box and I can read them aloud on your behalf. But while we're waiting for questions from the audience, Sarah, I think it's really interesting what the business model you're trying to work out here on the agronomic side, and I'm curious to know how the adoption has looked so far on the farmer side, and what maybe some of the challenges are in terms of getting farmers to take this up on a contract basis, and whether there's any cultivation challenges to bring indigo online.
Yeah, great question. So we are, we've been contract farming. We've been producing with contract farmers actually now since 2014. So we've had a huge share of challenges with that, really. Everything from in 2018, we tried to change varieties, and we had really massive seed shortage in terms of poor germination on the seeds that we wanted to transition to when we first started, and we're trying to target more higher plant populations per acre, but hadn't gotten the cultivation and the weed control by the farmers under really lockdown. We didn't know as much as we do now about ways for them to control weeds in no-till situations, as well as encouraging growers to go for closer row spacing without considering like how their cultivation equipment would work within that environment. So there have been tons of hurdles. The biggest ones going forward are more around our incentivization model. So we absolutely know that up to a certain limit, more plants per acre are going to increase yield per acre, but getting that happy medium where the farmer is still able to keep weeds under control. So in other words, it's going to fit with the rest of their cultivation equipment is probably a major challenge still for certain growers. For some that are in a no-till situation, that's actually much less of a concern because they're not cultivating at all. And then one just major part is that we're still producing the crop as a transplant crop. That is intentional. We're able to get 3 harvests per season by growing it as a transplant. But the big problem there is that you are having to work with farmers that are enabled to transplant the crop and have some amount of seasonal labor in the spring when the crop has to be transplanted. Everything else about our process is completely mechanized, but that still is done, with a mechanical transplanter, but ultimately requires farm labor. So when we're onboarding new farmers, growers that previously grew tobacco or are able to grow sweet potatoes or sugarcane or onion slips or something that is typically not planted by seed. Now we have 5 and 15,000 acre farmers who are growing 100 acres of tobacco and 50 acres of indigo. And so it's not like we don't work with major row crop farmers. We absolutely do. But all of those have either some interest in growing a transplant crop, but also the willingness to do the work that's required of that. The reason they do it is because the return per acre over their variable cost is much higher than they would get with the typical row crop. And so that's why they want to put in the work to grow a transplant crop.
Got it. That's really interesting. And it kind of leads into another question I'm curious about is whether or not there's a future in which Stony Creek owns also the production of the crop itself as the company grows and those cash flows materialize. Is there a world where it makes sense for Stony Creek to own a part of its own production in that sense beyond just contracting out? And then as a secondary point, are there any groups on sort of the actual customer side who are trying to develop primarily fashion products who have any adjacent agricultural operations where they would be willing to take on the contract farming as well and become more verticalized?
Yeah, great question. I'll probably answer the first part first, which is no, it's absolutely not part of our plan right now. In fact, part of scaling our new dry leaf process is our ability to even move away from that first tier processing of the harvest and instead have the farmer harvest and dry the plant. So certainly right now, I'd say we're massively involved in every aspect of the value chain. And that's while we certainly hand farm the crop, right? We farm all our own seed acreage and we farm the research field. That's not our core competency at the moment, not to say we couldn't develop that through bringing on great farm managers and partnering with more institutional landowners that are looking for, stable contracts for alternative crops. But it's not part of our plan at all right now. And in fact, we're actively looking at how do we, as we continue to scale the business, bring in partners that can continue to take on more and more of the parts of the business that we feel like we've developed enough to start handing off. On the more fashion products or, co-locating with other producers, without a doubt, we see a huge opportunity there with like cotton, for example. Two of our 3 indigo varieties are nematode suppressant crops. So they're not just resistant, like certain cotton varieties have to be nematode resistant unless they need tons of soil fumigants or other methods of controlling nematodes. But the indigo, especially over successive years of growing the crop, will actually lower the populations in the soil. And so while it's kind of a good marketing story for denim, it's also an opportunity to increase the sustainability of the way that the cotton is produced. So we don't have any partnerships to sort of announce in that space right now, but we know there's some active interest. And really for us, it's finding those right partners that, most cotton growers are not also planting transplant crops. So figuring out where and who would be good partners for actively managing the farms in those other regions that can allow it to be an improved cotton acreage. So be a good rotation crop for that organic or conventional cotton ground where they are just trying to limit their nematode populations.
Interesting. Yeah, that would be an interesting thing to see further down the road, and it feels like it would make sense once there was, I guess, yeah, it's definitely something that I would be interested to see going forward in the future. I guess Sarah, at this point, one thing we always like to ask our guests on these calls is if there are any ways in which the audience can help you. So whether that be on the customer side and the talent side, now would be a great time to let the audience know some ways in which they might reach out to you and help the cause of Stony Creek Colors.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks. I have so many. We are actively hiring 2 positions right now. Most importantly, another research chemist and a financial controller. So those job descriptions are on our website at stonycreekcolors.com. But beyond that, really, just framing the advancements that we've made, being able to now have this new extraction method that's successful from dry leaf products really does allow us to expand the geographic radius beyond one that we were able to consider previously. So we're on our 2nd year of growing the crop in a tropical location for a research farm. That's been met with really great results. The yields per acre are much higher because we're able to get more harvest per acre on 2 of our varieties. And so I think that where Stony Creek's really looking for developing partnerships is with large landowners and growers in regions that are further south of Tennessee. It could be anywhere from South Texas, South Florida, to the Mississippi Delta. And our preference is for places where there's at least some adequate rainfall. That is part of our marketing story right now, that is not really requiring too much supplemental irrigation as a crop, but absolutely are looking for regions to expand and be able to contract with at least a network of growers that can get up to over time at least 1,000 or 2,000 acres kind of for a region, but really the minimum to be able to have a dryer and a harvester that the farmer would operate would be at least like 200 acres. So that's kind of from one picture. And then obviously, as I mentioned, we have an active funding round under raise right now. And so I would welcome anyone to either check in with you guys or directly with us to find out where they might fit in there.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Sarah, for that. And thank you for walking us through the presentation today. It's obviously some really important and exciting work that you're doing. And looking forward to hearing of the progress in the new year as well. And also thank you to our audience who joined today. And thank you for participating in this webinar. If you would like to learn more about Stony Creek Colors, please let us know by answering the following poll question. And I believe Sarah's contact information was available in the presentation as well. For anybody who's new to these calls or listening on recording, we host these calls every week on Thursdays at 3 p.m. Central Time. You can register for Agrifood Conversations webinar series by going to agrifoodconversations.com. A replay of this webinar will be emailed to you in the next 24 hours. And if you know others that may want to listen to this webinar, they'll be able to access it via agrifoodconversations.com within the next 24 hours. Thank you to Sarah. Thank you to our guests, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.